Hey everyone, it's Eflapy Digital. If you are building voice AI with Vapi and you want to make agents reliable, more testable, and also very measurable, then this video is for you. So I'll break down three new features that changes the game of Vapi completely, which includes the new features in Vapi. There's structured output, there's evals or the evaluations, and then the boards. So we'll talk about what they are, why they matter, how we set them up, and how you use it in real voice AI projects. But in this video, I'll just be talking about structured outputs in Vapi in just a full guide. Now, so let's just start very simple. When you build a voice AI agent with Vapi, you don't just want the AI agent to talk to people, right? You want the agent to come back with some very usable information or data, for example, the prospect name, their phone number, their email, what they said, are they interested in whatever you're trying to sell them, or basically everything you want to get out of the call. Now that's where the structured output comes in because this feature lets you define exactly what data you want from each call in a very predictable format so your system doesn't have to guess or maybe like rely on sloppy passing. So the agent hands you clean data you can feed straight into your CRM, for example, like GHL or the triggers or any dashboard that you're using. So there is no messy workaround. So or things like we think this was the email from the agent, or we hope the interest was this, but we need things defined, validated, and also very reliable. So why this structured output new feature in Vapi will change the game on how we've been building voice AI agents. So if you have already built a voice AI agent before, you'll know the pain. For example, the prospect says something, you record the note, but it's in free form. Or email comes in weird variations, or you're missing capturing consent from from the prospect that you're calling. Sometimes the AI misses the emails and all that. Or later the CRM gets a little bit messy, the analytics are broken, you can't trust the data that are coming in from the AI agent. And also, when you include all these, scaling means the errors also will limit the scalability of your agency. So with structured outputs, you are able to define a schema. For example, the name of a person, their phone number, their email, their interest or consent or whatever you are trying to do with your agent. So the system ensures the agent tries to capture those. If it fails, you can detect it. You plug those clean outputs into your automations flows. For example, when I was building an AI agent to retrieve interest of people during the call if they want to become partner or connector, that's the most example I've used in these documents here. So, for example, tag as a partner prospect in GoHighLevel, send the right email template to them, all those kind of things. So you are able to plug those clean outputs and they are validated and also reliable. And then your dashboard will be able to work conveniently, and also your conversions become a little bit more measurable, and definitely you improve. So in short, you shift from the normal sloppy data capture to data you actually can trust. And for your projects, like your work with, for example, a utility warehouse, that means there will be smoother pipelines, fewer errors, better follow-ups to this prospect, and also definitely more income because you capture the right details or the leads and they are more reliable. Now, so how does it work? How does structured output in Vapi work? So let's walk through how you set it up in Vapi as if you are actually building right now. So step number one is to define what you need. You need to decide what data fields your project absolutely must capture. For example, for an outbound campaign for a utility warehouse, you'll need things like prospect name, their phone number, their email, their interest that they have shown to either become a partner or connector, for example, or no thanks at all. And maybe the contact to email or anything of that sort. So you have to understand what you need. And then number two, it's you'll be able now to create a very structured output definition. So in Vapi documentations or even in Vapi dashboard itself, you create a new structured output. You give it a name, for example, like utility warehouse outbound lead capture, and then write a very clear description of what exactly you're trying to do and achieve, and attach the schemas you define in step one. So Vapi then knows you will use these extractions. After this is done, you now jump into step three, which is now attaching it to your assistant that you've built for the campaign. So you need to go into the assistant you've built, the one doing the outbound calls or the inbound voice. In its configuration, you link the structured output definition. Now the assistant knows at the end of each call, I need to try and fill this schema out. So that's really clear. And now you head to step number four. You need to run calls and capture the exact data. So when call happens, the system listens, it transcribes, and it processes. And when the call ends, Vapi runs the extraction. So the result shows up in a call artifact structured output or kind of similar to that. So you can read it or even send it via a webhook to GoHighLevel or any other CRM and be able to take other actions. And the final step now is to use the data. Now you've got the structured data that you wanted from the call. Now you need to map it out. So if your interest category showed up as partner, you need to tag GoHighLevel contacts accordingly and send, for example, an email dedicated to partners. And for example, insert email if it's valid, if the consent to send the email it's false, or skip email campaign or handle differently. So it all depends with the kind of extraction you've done. And if you use a prospect name and phone number to create or update the contact and GoHighLevel, then trigger an email drip or next step, blah blah blah. So this smooths everything downstream as you're trying to work on everything in your agency. Now let's give an example and templates because it's better to see it than just talk about it here. So here are some of the example schemas from Vapi you can actually even adopt. So now let's talk about something like a lead qualification agent and schemas that you'll have to use for that kind of a system. So the fields that you'll need definitely will be the name, the phone number, the email, interest, appointment date, availability, things like that. For the e-commerce order index schema, you'll need order ID, customer, items, total price, or even tracking ID, those kind of specifics. And when it comes to healthcare booking schema, and this is really, really, really sensitive, depending on which countries you're in, you'll need the patient's first name, their last name, their phone number, appointment, email, preferred date, blah, blah, blah. And you need also to not like ask confidential kind of things to try and retrieve during the conversations. So these templates shows you how flexible the system is. So you're not locked into very simple fields. You can use arrays, nested objects, enums, etc, booleans, and all those kind of things. So it's a really, really new feature that's doing great jobs. Now, here are some things you need to watch out for if you want this to truly work for you and not just like we turned it on and Vapi, but you need to pay attention to these following things. And one is the schema must match your logic. Don't just capture fields you don't need. Fewer fields is equals to fewer chances of failure. So you need to be more extensive on that. And then you need to validate the data quality. Give it the formats, the patterns. For example, if you want to capture a phone number in a certain pattern, you need to give it, for example, the E plus 164, blah, blah, blah. All this data you can be able to get them from Vapi documentation or GoHighLevel if you're using those two CRMs or tools. If you capture phone number poorly, your CRM will junk it out and you'll not be able to get that in. And especially with GoHighLevel, it's very specific with its formatting. And then number three, it's the optional versus required fields. So make only truly required fields required. If you mark email as required, but prospect refuses, your extraction fails or you get nulls, you must handle that also. And then ensure assistant uses it. So if schema exists but not attached, data won't get captured. So you see, it's very specific things that will determine the success of this feature on in your agent. And then you need to map your downstream systems. If GoHighLevel expect fill the email, make sure your schema field is email. Mapping mismatches cause loss of data and a lot of incorrect information being sent to whatever you're trying to get this from. And then you need to monitor the results. So after the batch of calls, check what percentage of call captured emails, how many interests they come out, how many voicemail, how many timeouts, how many kind of like fails. Use that feedback to be able to refine your script, your prompts, your systems, and all that. And then be able to handle the failure. So if data fails extractions, for example, like invalid emails, log it, have fallbacks ready for that. Maybe you can ask the agents again or flag for manual follow-up, something like that. And now, so let's ask ourselves why this matters for you specifically right now. Because you and I are, of course, building voice AI systems for clients, right? This means the difference between delivering a project that works roughly and one that runs like a well-oiled machine. When you use structured output, that's what you'll be able to get. The call agent becomes lead capture machine, not just a conversation. Your CRM is populated with usable leads and data and correct data immediately. Your automation flows pick up clean data and run without any human cleanup. You see how efficient it's becoming? You can also measure outcomes properly. That means you can show your clients or even your boss the real data. For example, in the last campaign, 73% of calls captured a valid email, 42 opted for partner versus connector or whatever. Conversion to email sent was, for example, 30%, 40%, 70%, something like that. So that kind of clarity builds trust, expands your ability to charge even more as a developer, scales you faster, and deliver definitely a lot of value to your clients. So it positions you as the builder who gets it done right and not just, the normal, yeah, I do it. So here is what I want you to do this week or the next plan of action you have to consider. One is to pick a campaign you're working on. For example, I am working on inbound and outbound calls for partners and connectors for a utility warehouse, right? So you need to define a schema, write down every field you need, the phone, the name, the interest, whatever, based on what you're building. And then create a structured output in Vapi, attach it to the appropriate assistant, and then run one or two test calls, actually even with yourself, check the call artifacts under the structured outputs. Especially, yeah, you can check under the analytics, or if you're using GoHighLevel as your logging kind of details there, you can check under the inbound webhook data structured there. So you'll be able to see and review what you've captured, and then map those fields into your GoHighLevel automation or whatever tools you use. Test the whole chain again, call data CRM email, call data CRM blah blah blah, or call data any other action. And then you monitor at scale. After 50 to 100 calls, how many valid emails, how many interest categories, and tweak prompts as needed. So I believe that's a super amazing guide that you need for you to start off with structured output and understanding what actually they do and how you can use it and for what purpose in Vapi to be able to deliver quality projects to your clients. So if you want me to help you with this setup from scratch up to structured output, evals, and also bots, let me know. You can book a discovery call with me. The link is on my description there of this video. You can just book anytime there. I'll jump into the Zoom call with you. We go through all this and then we see what needs to be done next. Hope you learned something, and if you did and you need any clarification, just comment down below the video, and I'll be there to respond as soon as possible. So thank you so much for watching, and let's meet in the next video.